Okay, this is the inner out of my mid. I'm now going to make one for my housemate. So I thought I would just go through and show you how I made this one. So on mine I've got this is just the sill poly from my actual outdoor tent. It just gives you a bit more of a windbreak here and stops a bit of the splashing that I found I had with my first attempt I made. And that actually worked really well. So I'll be doing that again. However, I'll be using just the floor fabric because he's only got that to use. And also when I attach it to the inside of my tent, I use just a bit of elastic on the corners with a mitten clip, and it clips onto the pegs of the actual mid. And it's the same with the front ones here. So they just clip onto the mid. So it's only a half of an inner. So the other half of my tent is actually open to the floor, which is really good for cooking and storing your luggage. And I've actually I usually use a number 3 zip because that's perfectly strong enough for this. However, when my housemate ordered his stuff, he only had number 5s in stock, so I'm putting a number 5 on his. But number 3 is probably easier to fit, and also it's plenty strong enough. So yeah, I mean number 3 is the go really. And on the top here we just have a line lock. So and another mitten clip that clips to the inside of the mid, and then you can just crank it up and adjust it to bring up the tension a bit. But yeah, and it's plenty long enough. My feet just touch the end, but that's fine because I'm in my sleeping bag. So this is roughly the measurements of what it will end up being at the end. It might be a bit taller because of the stretch in the net, but that'll be roughly what it ends up at. And then there's the shopping list as what you'll need to make it. If you've making an outer, then you can just buy an extra yard of the fabric for the outer and use that as the windbreak around the sides, or you can just use the floor material. You should have enough extra, I think, if you buy 3 yards of floor fabric, but it's just a bit heavier and a bit over the top, to be honest. So yeah, you're best just to use the sill poly. This is what you're going to cut for the bug net itself and the windbreak on the bottom. So the windbreak part is the yellow sections. So the 3 triangle on the top is the dimensions after you've sewn the bug net on. So you can check that before you actually go and sew it all together. And the bottom one here is the dimensions for what you actually cut out before you start sewing it together. This one is the what you cut out for the floor. So you just cut a whole rectangle out for the floor. Don't worry about the inner measurements there, that's just how big the floor will be once you've finished it. But mark the 125mm in each corner on each side. That just makes it easier for when you're sewing the outers on. And then on the right here is the dimensions for your pullouts and what they should be after you've sewn them, and also for the end of the zip. So it's just your 90mm long strips that just goes over the end of the zip to finish them. Okay, this is the front panel. So this is the first one we're going to sort out. So I've got to put the zip on the front here. So I've marked down the centre here, and then for the bottom curve where the zip will come around the corner here, what we'll use, I've used the dustbin lid here just to get a nice curve. It doesn't want to be too tight as the zip won't go round. So I use just a piece of natural chalk to mark it. So yeah, we'll just cut around there, around this curve, and finish here. Okay, so I've got my ground sheet here laid out, and then there's the left hand side of the door mesh here. So with this Hyper D fabric, there's two sides. There's the silky side, which is the silicone side, which we have on the inside. And then there's the dull side, which is a PU coating, and that goes against the floor. This side is a lot more waterproof than the silicone side. So to start with, we'll have the silky side facing up, and then we'll just sew along here for the first seam. So we'll do that now. Okay, so that's the first part of this seam. So the next part is we just flip it back, flip it inside out again. So it's this way round. Then you just need to try and get the seam sitting as nicely as you can. So just so it's like this, so it's just doubled up. And do this all the way down. Okay, so that's all pegged on. So now we just need to sew, put a second row of stitching down about 10mm in, just so you're only just getting the two parts of fabric and you're not getting the extra little tab that's in here as well. So you just want to get just the outside and the inside, not that middle bit. So this is the inside of the tent with the silky side. So we've got 2 rows of stitches here now. So next we just need to put the final row of stitches in. So we just fold that over, and what we do, we just put a row of stitches as close to the edge on the fabric here as you can. So it holds that down, and then that gives you a super strong seam. So when you're sewing this one, it's quite difficult because you've got so much fabric around. But what you want to do, you want to be pulling these two apart whilst keeping it tight here with your thumb, just to give you a good stitch like this. And then just running it along this edge as close as you can get. Okay, so next thing we've got to try to put the zips onto our zipper. So I've already got one on here already. I put that on just a minute ago. And I'm now going to show you how to do this one. So when we put them on, they want to be facing each other. So then you can zip the middle part open and get in and out easier. You can just put one zip on, but it's it's a bit harder to get in and out compared to two. So yeah, first we need to just melt the ends so they don't fray. Then you open this bit up, and you'll see one side here has a little bit coming down, and the other one's more flat. So you put the flat side on the smooth side here, and you just feed that end in like this. And then you just try and get this one here to match the same height as the other end here. And then you just push it in. Takes quite a while, it's a bit tricky and it takes a while to get in, but once you do it, there you go, look. And you just try to make sure that they're on the same teeth, so when you zip it up you don't end up with them they're sitting the same, like this. Okay, so next we want to put the top on to our zip. So this is just to stop the zip from falling off the top, and gives us something to attach it to all the way to the very top. So for this I just used a bit of a heavier fabric here, because if you're using the light stuff it takes quite a bit of strain when you're zipping it up. So all it is a cut 90mm piece of fabric. Doesn't matter how long, as long as it's long enough for the top of the zip, and then you can always cut it off later. So I usually just have a long strip of this made up, and then just cut it off as I need once I've sewn it on. So with it still inside out, we just thread this onto the zip the whole way. Because the wrong side of the zip is actually going to be the front of mine on the tent, so this is going to be sitting like this as you come in. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to have the seam of this. I'll have this. I'll set this in the middle here, like that. And you want it to be at the end there. And what we'll do, we'll just peg that on there, and then we'll just run a stitch across here. And then we turn it inside out and we'll run a second row of stitching, and that will then be the top of the zip. Okay, so I've sewn the inside, I've now pulled it back the right way round. So all we'll do now, we'll just put a stitch across here, just to tidy that up and keep it in nicely. So this is where the zip will actually meet the tent here. So what I'm going to do, just to make it a nice easy transition rather than that square angle there, I'm just going to cut it, marked here, just cut it to make that circle a little bit easier to follow. And then what happens, because you've got this this piece here, maybe like 10 mil or just under 10 mil, what I'm going to do, I'm going to just cut 10 mil off the bottom of the whole thing here, along where the bottom of the zip's going to go, just to make it all even all the way along. Right, so the next thing, we're just going to clip the zip to our door here. So the zip is actually the right way up, so we've got the teeth on this side. This is the outside of the tent. This is going to be the inside of the zip. So when we flip it over, it'll actually be inside out and give you a bit of a nicer finish than actually just seeing the teeth. So we've clipped it as close. So we clipped it so the edge of the mesh is on the edge of the zip here. And with the top, we just have that hanging out a little bit extra above the top, just so it gives us a little bit extra at the end to play with, and just cut that out. And yeah, we clipped it all the way around, lots of clips around the corner here because that's where it'll struggle. And again, just keeping as close to keeping the fabrics just off the edge here. So we clipped it all the way around. And then once you get to the end, because we haven't finished the end of the zip here yet, for the reason of I'm never sure exactly how long to make it, because by the time you put your curve and everything in, it gets a bit complex, and I've never really worked it out. It always ends up too short or too long if I do it before. So before we actually sew the zip on, we'll put in the end on the zip here, the same as we did the other end. So what we do, I've measured 125 mil in here. So this is where the zip is actually going to be finishing against the wall. So then we want to probably come in another 100 mil to about where this clip is. So we'll cut the zip here, and then we'll finish it like we did the other end and have the excess hanging out this way. Okay, I've sorted out the both ends of the zip now, and we're about to start doing our first stitch along the zip here. However, I'm using just my regular foot here instead of the zipper foot, mainly because if you use the zipper foot on this, because this is a number 5 zip, I find that it gets too close to the zip and actually wears away the mesh after a while. And I find that the regular foot works just as well, and it just gives it a little bit extra, a couple of mil away from the zip. So I like to use the regular zip on the number 5 on the mesh here. But usually I just use a number 3 zipper anyway on the mesh, on the inners. Number 5 is a little bit heavier duty, but you don't really need it, and it just adds extra weight. But they didn't have any in stock when my flatmate ordered this for his tent, so we're using number 5 instead. Right, we've sewn the zip all the way around, and now we just come back to the top here just to finish the top. So now we've got a line here, we can see that we're going to just follow, which makes it a lot easier. It doesn't move around, so it's just easier to finish it like this. Okay, so we've got our zip sewn on for the first stitch here. So when you come down to the end, this is the bottom of it. I've just measured 125 mil in from the edge, so this is where the end's going to be. So we just stop there, and then what we're going to do next, we're just going to fold this open, and then we're going to just run a second lot of stitching along the edge of the zip again. But this time we're going to try to get it out towards the edge here, maybe a couple of mil in from the edge, and we'll just do that all the way along, and then that'll be giving you a nice finish on the back here of the zip. So when you're doing this, you just want to pull the fabric a little bit, just pull it away a little bit just to keep it tight, and then that'll give you a real tight finish on the back. Okay, this is a bit harder to explain now. So we've got one side of the zip all sewn on to the actual main panel, and we're now going to sew it onto the door side. So I've clipped it on already, only done the long edge. So this is the inside of the main panel here, and this is the door panel here. So we've got the inside of the door facing down, the inside of the main panel facing this way, and we're going to sew them together just along the zip here again. And we just follow it all the way around. This is really tricky, trying to follow that curve. But yeah, we'll just do it all the way along to the end. So don't worry about it being a bit puckered up, the zip, because it's just because it's not pulled tight and everything yet. So you can't really do anything about that at the minute. So we're just going to lay the next lot of stitching down here. You can see that this is the side we've done in the second lot already, and we're just going to do exactly the same, following this side now, and that'll then help it sit a little bit better. But whatever, you're going to end up with wrinkles coming through here. There's no way around that really. Okay, that's the hardest part done. So all the zips on. It's got the curve on there. The zippers on there. So it's all done. Now we're going to do the start on the sides and get them ready. Okay, this is the one of the sides. So this part here is going to be a bit of a windbreak more than anything, up the sides, and we've also got one of these along the back. So if you look here, I've lined this up here. So this is when we go to sew, we sew, make sure this is all lined up here, and you'll see that it actually overhangs this edge a little bit. And if you follow the diagram that I'll put up, then you'll find that this is actually this edge is shorter than this edge, and that's because by the time we finish the seam, this actually gets brought down and will line up pretty perfectly with it. So we do the same as we did to attach the front bit of mesh. We do the 3 seams or the 3 stitches along here, and we do that on all of the sides, joining the mesh to the fabric. So I'll just show you again quickly how to do that. So here we go. This is both the short sides together, and I've clipped the bottoms all together where I'm going to sew now. So this is the dull side, so this is going to be on the outside, and we'll just lay a stitch along the bottom of each of these. So that's our first seams done along here, and all you do, flip it over, get it on the edge, and pin it like this one, and then we'll just run a stitch 10mm in from the edge all the way down. Right, so I've done both of those, and now you'll see that this meets pretty much perfectly, so that's good. So what we do for the final seam, this is the inside of the tent, this is the silky side. So what we'll do, we'll push that over and we'll just sew as close to the edge of the fabric here as we can get, and then that'll be the end of that seam. So we do that on all of the edges, and the long back edge as well. So I've sewn all of the windbreak panels now on the bottom of the mesh. So this is the back panel here, I've done that as well. So that's been sewn all the way along. And then that's one of the side sections. So this is actually the floor of the inner. So this is actually the part you sleep on. This is the right way out. So now we're going to attach the 3 sides onto this. So on this we'll what we do, we take the sides and we turn them this way around. So this is the outside, and then this is the outside. So the insides are facing together. And you can see here I've measured, made 125mm box in the corner, so it's 125, 125. So when these go on, you'll notice that these boxes, they overlap slightly, so you want to make sure it overlaps the same both ends on there. And then when we sew along the bottom, we only sew up to where the line is, so this section here will actually be loose. So I've sewn on one side already. So this has got the three rows of stitches on here now already. So that one's done. I'm now just going to start on the long side. It's all clipped on there, ready to go. And what you might find easier as well is if you just mark where you want to start sewing and finish. That way you don't go past it. So you just want to finish it like this side here. Okay, so we've sewn on all 4 sides now. So the next thing we need to do is just to make the corners for the pullouts. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is make some pullouts. So this is where we attach the bungees or peg it out. So we need to make some. They look like this. So you just put your elastic to this piece where you peg it out, or you just peg straight through it. So I'll just show you how to make those. So first you need to just cut out 4 squares, because we need 4 of them, 1 for each corner. So there's 120mm squares. What we do is we fold that in half. Then what we do, we just sew along the bottom here. So I've just clipped it together. This is inside out, sewn it along here. So what we do next, we just snip off the end here. And then you get your little piece of webbing here. So I've just melted the ends together to hold it together, and it's just a small bit. So we need to put the bit that's not burnt, the good bit, we need to put that through into the inside. Leave a little bit sticking out here, and we'll just sew along the seam. And then when we turn it the other way, we'll then put a bar track, so that'll then get against this piece. Okay, so I've just turned this back the right way, and what we're going to do, we're just going to run a seam along the bottom here and a bar track along here, the same as this one. So when you do the bar track, just make sure you're getting the little tab that's through here. And when we do this bottom seam, I use my blind hem foot just to get it right nice and close to the edge. I'm just using some cheap nylon here, nylon fabric stuff. You can just use the same material you used for your floor, but I haven't actually got any left of that, so I'm just using this, which is a bit stiffer, a little bit heavier, but that'll be okay. So yeah, I'll just go ahead and do this, and then we've got all 4 done. So this is the corner where we're going to be sewing the pullouts to. So this is the actual bottom. This is the matte side. So this is this black line here. This is the 120mm box that we marked in the corner. So what we're going to do, we've lined these up, the lines both sides, and an easy way to do this is you get this seam here and that seam down here, this one here. So these are the 2 where the floor meets. You line those up, and it should all line up nicely. So what we're going to do, we're going to sew this side of the line, so about 5mm in. We're just going to sew up here to where the stitching here meets, so the top of the floor. So we're going to sew to there, and then once you're there, you then bring this and this together like this, and then we just start sewing up the edge all the way to the top. Okay, so we've got to the edge here. So what we're going to do, we'll lift the foot. We'll then just bring this mesh around so it's in line with this, like this. Then we'll put the foot back down, and then we'll just carry on all the way up to the top along here. Okay, so we've got this first seam all the way down to the top now. So we come back down to the bottom here where we've got our triangle. So first we just need to cut along here, so we need to cut this bit off. Just cut maybe 5mm in, maybe just a little bit more. So we just cut along here, a bit scary. Right, so once you cut your excess bit off, you want to line up your pull-out bit here. So you want to have the bottom here in line with where the corner of your line here is, and you want this open edge to be along the edge of the stitching, like this. And then what we'll do, we'll just run a stitch down along the edge here, making sure you get this fabric underneath, and that way then that'll hold it all together for when we turn it inside out and do the next seam, which will be along the black, which will actually be along here, so that'll give it a bit more strength. Okay, so this is the inside now. So we've got the pull out is here. You can just sort of see where there. So you have to get the seam to sit nice along here, and just peg it. And what we'll do, we'll just sew 10mm in from here, and that'll then give you the next row of stitching along that pull out, and tidy up all the edges. Don't go all the way down to the bottom here though. Start at the edge of the where you can feel the edge of the pull out. Just start on there, and then that'll make it a bit more waterproof. So we'll head up here. Once we get to there, then we start doing the same along this edge. It's just quite hard because again you've got to sort of stop here, rearrange everything as you're going, and you do that all the way to the top. Okay, so now we've got the last part of this seam to do. So what we're going to do, we're going to fold this tab over to the bigger side, and we're just going to sew it again down along, all the way down along the edge, and that'll be the final part of that seam. So we sew all the way down to the bottom, but when you get down to where your floor meets, we just stop here and leave this like this. We don't go any further than here, just because then it'll put more holes into the floor, and we don't really need that. And that's plenty to hold the corners in anyway. So we just go just down to here. Okay, so we've sewn up the whole of this seam now. Done the three rows of stitching, and this is the right way out now. So you can see how it'll sit. Yeah, that works pretty well. Just wish I had black thread, because you can see all my shoddy stitching now. But yeah, that's basically how it'll sit. So we do all 4 edges now, but I usually leave the door section till the last, just because it makes it easier to do the final stitching. Right, that's seam number 2 done. Now for seam 3. When you're doing the longer seams, don't forget to check your bobbins full, because you don't want to get down to the end and then realise that the bobbin ran out halfway up and then have to redo it all. So yeah, just keep an eye on your bobbin. There we go. Got 3 seams done now. So we've just got the one by the door here, last one to do. So when we do this one, I'm just going to put a piece of the ribbon halfway through the middle here, just to give you something to tie back to. So we put that in as we put the first seam through. Okay, so this is the final edge here. So this is the one with the door on it. So to give us something to tie the door back, I've just got a piece of this ribbon. I've melted the ends together. So we double it up, and then where the join is, you have that in the middle, like this. And then we'll just insert this into where the seam's going to go. Now you want, where the join is, you want it just on the outside of the where the stitching is going to be, and then just sew straight over it. And then as we go through, it will give you something just to tie a piece of elastic to or something when you want to tie the door back. We've done all of our seams now, and now we're going to try to sort out this top section. Whatever you do, it always ends up a real mess. It never ends up nice and neat, like you always hope. So if yours look like that, it doesn't really matter in the slightest, because what we're going to do, we're going to use one of these line lock adjusters. These are really good. So we put some elastic through here, and that will attach then to the top of the inside of the tent. And then you'll have a little hook on the inside here, just to attach maybe a torch or something on the inside here as well. So what we do, we just get a loop, we melt the ends together, and then we'll turn this the other way out, the right way out, and then we'll sew that in. This is now the right way around, and so what you do, you just, once you get the right way around, you just sort it out until it looks as neat as you can get it, really. That's not too bad. So what we do, we get our line lock with it facing forwards, so this is the front, so we get it to face forwards, and we just poke it through into the actual tent here, until it sits in here nice and neatly, and then we just sew across the top here. Now what we'll do, we'll just sew across the top, maybe put a bit of a bar track in here just to give it a bit of extra strength and tidy it up a bit, and then we'll flip it around the other side, cut off all of the excess in here, and maybe just do a a zigzag off the edge just to tidy it all up on the inside here as well. There we go. You can see the bathtub part of the inner there stands up really well, giving you 100 mil of above the ground, so you'll never get any water in there. Okay, so once you've got it up, if you so choose, you can seam seal just these corners, just because that's the only bit there really where the water might come in. I've never bothered really with my own tent, and I've never had any problems, but if you do, just use the seam grips. Okay, here it is all set up. You know, usually it'll just be hooked to the top of the inside of the mid, but you can set it up like this with just your walking pole if it's not going to rain and you want to see the stars, and just peg down the four corners. There we go. Okay, thank you for watching.